Hey mages, welcome to today's video. And today, it's a new type of video, I'd say. What I'm looking at today is, I get a lot of people who want to play meta decks, but they're looking for budget versions of these and ways maybe to start these meta decks off and then gradually build towards something. So what I've done today, I've found 5 really good meta decks, and I've basically reduced the rares, started them off as a budget version of these meta decks, and then it will give you a way to upgrade them and to build them as you go along, as you draw your wild cards, as you might pull some of these cards in packs, or it'll give you some idea of the deck as it is, and maybe then you decide, I'm quite glad I didn't just chuck 30 rares into this deck. Now, majority of these decks, as you look at, apart from some decks like mono red, they're relatively budget, running 12, 13, stuff like that. A lot of these decks are running 30 plus rares minimum. So all of these 5 decks that I'm going to show you today, I've put together with a maximum of 10 rares. Now 10, I do lots of 0 rare, 5 rare, and obviously this is 10 rare. So with this and these sort of decks, you still need these decks to be competitive. You still need them to work, basically. So I feel like with 10 rares is a good starting point for some of these really powerful tier 1 decks, and then you can just basically build them up as you go along, but hopefully still get the results and wins along the way. So I hope you're excited about this. I will put both deck lists down below of each deck, so there'll be 10 deck lists in total. That will be over on my Mox field. Links there. Don't forget to give me a follow over on there, so then you can just keep up to date with all my deck builds. But yeah, without further ado, we're going to go and look at the deck. But if there's any deck here that you want to get in paper, like I always say, check out my sponsors, Cardmarket. But let's get on to the first deck. So the first deck that we are going to make a budget version of is Golgari Midrange. This is the full version. Yes, you can see, very powerful deck. It has a total of 32 mixture of rares and mythics. So 32, and we're going to cut this down to a playable 10 rare version of this deck. Some cards you can just do, slight changes and just put in the same sort of card. Sometimes there's not a card that actually is, the same as what I'm going to be taking out. But we're definitely keeping the essence of each of these decks, like I said. A lot of the rares and a lot of the decks are in the land base, like as you can see with this one, 4 Blooming Marsh, 4 Waste, 4 Cottage. And in some of the builds, I am keeping some of those lands as well to help it, be a lot more consistent than it would be with just all total budget lands. Because a lot of these are multicolour decks. I've even taken a go at a reanimator deck, 4-colour reanimator, and yet I played it in practice and it works really well. So this is the deck you're looking. You got Liliana the Veils, good cards, card draw, and creatures like Mosswood Dreadknight, and then your finishers are really Vraska, and a card that I'm finding very good in standard at the moment, obviously with all the enchantments around, is Glissa Sunslayer. So that is a reason why we keep a lot of some of these cards. Let's take a look at the budget version. So here is the budget version, and we are down to 10 mixtures of rares and mythics, 10 in total. And when you see the 2 decks, you will be able to see what I've taken out and what I've replaced in with it, obviously, so you can just compare the 2 deck lists down below. Now, we're keeping for the land base, we're keeping 3 of the Restless Cottage, because this actually turns into a creature. So deciding which land I wanted to keep out of all them, this for me was the obvious choice. We've got other basic lands like this. The new Strangle Cemetery can come in untapped potentially, so always a good card late on that will come in untapped and do those dual colours for you. I've gone for Hollow in this because it's a mid-rangey deck and we might be a little bit slower and there's a lot of aggro out there, so I'm putting this in there because it enters and gains just 1 life, and then we have the mixtures of the basics, and then Demolition Field come in to do a job to destroy opponent decks that are running cards like Restless Cottage, which is a very highly played card at the moment. So you look at the basis of the deck, we're still very much the same type of deck. But an interesting card that I've added in is Spelunking. So this will draw a card, may put a land card from your hand onto the battlefield. If you put a cave, you gain 4 life. But the important part about playing this is that lands we control enter untapped. So if we can get this down and then just play the Strangled and it doesn't trigger the 13 life, this will come in untapped. The same is with Restless Cottage, and the same will be with Hollow. So this is a great addition for us budget players because we've got tapped lands coming in, and Spelunking, if it's down first, can definitely do a job for this deck. We are keeping in the winners like Vraska coming in there. We've got Glisser in there as a 2-of as well. We've got, you know, a lot of the same cards. Cut Down, Duress. It's had a real good mixture of commons and uncommons in this deck. So this has Go for the Throat. We had to make a change, so we changed our enchantment class up. We changed it to Hunter's Talent, which I think is a good addition, you know, compared to the other class that we did have in there. This can come in, we can deal damage and potentially kill opponent creature. When we attack in, it's going to give us that trample that we need to get over. And the pay 4, if you control a creature with power 4 or greater, great endgame. You know, if we need to do this later on, it's a bit of an attrition kind of match, then we get to draw a card if we've got that creature with power 4. Now, adding in Obstinate Boleth gives us a way, you know, good way to face against the discard decks, Liliana decks. That we got Liliana out of this build, but this opposing decks we're playing that we might be able to just put it in straight away if we have to discard. And it's got that power of 4, so it's going to work really well with a Hunter's Talent and potentially just give us some more card draw. We've still got Deep Cavern Bat to attack hands, and what I added in for that as well in the Lily spot for me was Thought Stalker Warlock. Enters, choose target opponent. If they lost life this turn, reveal a hand you choose on a land card. But they still get to have to discard a card either way, whether it's of their choice or whether we get to look at it if we've done some damage as well. Where I like always a little bit of recursion in budget builds. An Honest Rustine is a nice 3-drop creature that we can put in there. Return target creature card from your graveyard to hand when this enters. So Deep Cavern Bats always, you know, honestly killed pretty soon. Glisser is killed on spot. You know, a lot of cards like that. So Honest Rustine coming in is another way to recur one of our creatures, and then it just makes creature spells 1 less to cast as well, and has 3/2 stats. So I feel like this is a good addition to the deck. Still got the Mossmo's Dread Knight. I feel that card draw is really good, and the recurring of this 4 in the full version deck. We're going to 3 years, so we got the rares and the mythics down to 10 in this, but it is recurring and still gets us a nice creature on there as well, potentially a 3/2 for 2 mana. Removal, Terror Thunder in there. And like I said, the full Go for the Throats, and then keeping the win con of this deck as well, which I feel was good for this. Vraska is definitely a win con. You can draw your cards, get to proliferate, and potentially get to that -9, or use it for removal as well. You can play this for 5 mana and 2 life, or it will come down a 6 mana. And failing all that with some of the creatures, Restless Cottage was in there as well, because it turns into a 4/4, and it can make us a food token. So a bit more life gain in there and helping us get some of that maybe early life gain that we lost. But this is the budget 10 rare version of this deck. Now let's get on to the second deck. So now we're going for 4 colour Reanimator with its 35 mixture of rares and mythics. 35 with this one. Over half the deck, a couple of Myrics in there. It's got 4 Fabled Passage, a lot in the land base here, 4 Concealed Courtyards and 4 Caves here. But then it does run a lot of the mythic creatures here. 4 Overlord, the new Overlord of Balmok, really good, paying his turn 2 and potentially getting a creature back. Val Vergoth. How do people pronounce this? Valgavoth, 9/9 flying lifelink ward. If you can reanimate this on turn 4, it's just absolutely amazing. And of course, along with Atraxa, we all know how good Atraxa is. It also runs a Besiege the Mirror. This is a mythic fest, this deck, absolutely. The full version of this, bargain. If you've got an artifact, you can just sacrifice to this or an enchantment, and then you can obviously play that exile card instead of putting it into your hand. Is very good. It does run a single Kaya in the deck, which is nice in there, but it was an easy exclude for me just because it's a one-off, and you know there's going to be a lot of games where you just don't actually pull that. But obviously, if you've got it, you can put it in there. The deck revolves around getting creatures into the graveyard early. Bitter Triumph, discard as you destroy stuff. Valgavoth Faithful can pay 4 straight away and return target creature card in. And Rite of the Moth is the way that this deck really does like to do it. And you return target creature card from your graveyard to the battle with a finality counter, and then you flash back one of these absolutely massive Elder Demons avatars or your big Phyrexian Angel. That is the idea of the deck, but let's get on to my budget version. So my budget version with 10 rares. Here we go. Looking at the land base first. We're bringing in the same again. Scout Barons, and we're bringing in the Collective Mana for those 4 rares. The rares of each of them, I think they're just really good. We're swapping Myrics over for Demolition Field because this will still do a really good job. And Myrics might be good in some builds. You might want to keep the field in there. It really depends on what you come across, but those creature lands are everywhere in my arena for sure, so I do like Demolition Field in there. And we've got 3 Concealed Courtyards in there. I couldn't quite fit to have the 4 in there, and some basics. Now, you're looking at the creatures, we still have the same creatures but less numbers. So we still got Valgavoth in there as a one-off, we've got a couple of Overlord, and even in some main version I'm seeing 2 of Balmark as well. So the other deck did have 4, but I've seen that as well. But 2 Attracts in there is still plenty, I feel, to recur these really powerful creatures. Now the creature I've added, which is absolute value, Shroud Stomper for uncommon, a 5/5 Death Touch, enters or attacks, each opponent loses 2 life, you gain 2 life, and you draw a card. So if we regurgitate this and put it straight back onto the battlefield and reanimate it, even if it just enters the battlefield and gets killed straight away, which obviously a lot of creatures do, we still get that trigger. So we enter, we will drain opponent for 2 life, we will gain 2 life, and then we will draw a card. We've still managed to keep a couple of Beseech the Mirror in here. So the deck still is very much like the other deck. It's just a few lesser numbers and changing the creatures that I still think this creature here is, we're still keeping the 3 main ones, but adding this in, I think is just really good. And in practice, Shroud Stomper has got me in games and won me games from practice. So I feel this is still, a very good inclusion. Now, what do we add in? We're adding in a couple more creatures and a bit more removal for the stuff that we've taken out. Also, we're looking at adding in Commune with Evil, which I'm surprised isn't in the main version, but this for me is very good because it gains you life, which is what you need sometimes in this aggro meta. You get to look at the top 4 cards, put 1 in your hand and the rest in your graveyard. So you still get to put plenty of cards in your graveyard, choose the one you want and gain 3 life. So it's very, very good. Also adding in Split Skin Doll in here. Another way to discard. We haven't got Lilianas or anything like that. So this can come in, draw a card, then discard a card unless we control it. And it leaves a 2-mana, 2/1 creature on the field as well. We've still got Draw Discard with Collector's Vault from the main one as well. Valgavoth is in there. Still got a lot of the same, removal like Bitter Triumph with the discard effect as well, which is really nice. But then I've added in a couple of different bits of removal with thinking about what the meta is. A card like Long Goodbye gets around Ward and it can't be countered. So this can hit those Oculus decks as well. Destroy target creature or planeswalker with mana 3 or less. So get rid of Lilies. You can get rid of Oculus, the 3 mana, and it can't be countered by those blue decks. So I feel like Long Goodbye is some really good tech at the moment. It should be in a lot more decks. And then Elspeth Smite. Elspeth Smite, 3 damage, and it's got an exile effect, which is really good. I nearly went for the 2-mana exile target attacking creature, but I feel like having this as a 1-drop, as we got plenty of 2-drops already in there, I feel like is probably a better addition and gives us more of a steady mana curve there as well. Kind of, as you can see, it's a bit up and down. 2s was really heavy, so I didn't really want to put any more 2s in there. So this is the budget version of this deck. This is fun and still works really, really well. So this is, give this a go if you can. If you just picked 1 or 2 of these from your packs in recent times and you think, well, I can't really play because I haven't got that, you can craft this really cool uncommon, just make up the space for them and then have yourself a really good deck. So talking of control, we got UW Blue-White, 33 rare control here. So main win con, the only win con of this deck. Now it's a deck that does play very well, very annoying to play against. People quit against this, they just don't want to play against it. It's just going for the mill with Jace, the Perfected Mind. Basically, that is the way you win this, you win your matches. That is all it is. But I like these style of decks. It does run a single Restless Anchorage in there, which, some decks run more, so you've got 1 creature in there. But the idea is counter removal with this deck. Lots of removal. There's the one that I was thinking about in the previous deck, not on my watch. So it's got a 4 of in this one. More counter magic with no more lies. And the idea is to keep everything off the field with your Sunfalls, your temporary lockdowns, your split ups, everything possible. Counter everything possible, attack graveyards with the Ghost Vacuum, and then just keep, mill your opponent until you get the win. Land base in this isn't terrible in the main version, like 4 Sea Crones, 4 Darkers, then the Tranco, because you want that life gain in these sort of decks, and 4 Demolition Field. But the idea is just mill, but let's get on to the budget version where we knock this from 33 down to 10 rares. So down to 10 rares, obviously keeping in the 4 Jace because that is the win-con of the deck. And then what I decided, well, we needed the removal. You need removal when you're playing this. mass removal, potential mass removal, you do need that. So it was really easy just to go for 3 Sunfall and then 3 temporary lockdown for this, and then just basically change other cards from the rares that we could do. Quite a few lands, obviously. There wasn't, like I said, there was about eight rare lands was there in there. We just bring in Lonely Ario again, and then we bring in Abandoned Campground, which is good, and then still got the 4 Tranquils and the 4 Demolition Field and some basics. And what I did was chuck in a single Hidden Cataract for that Discover 4 to hopefully find Jace, the Discover 4 for 1 land. So we swap our single Ghost Vacuum for Soul Guide Lantern because that still attacks graveyards, so that's all very good. The card draw that we're missing from the rare sorcery that was drawing us cards in the main version, I've gone for Union of the Third Path because life gain is really important when you're playing this type of deck because you're just going to be swamped early on, and then a bit of card draw extra in Spell Guide that acts as a counter spell as well. Now we got removal. Now the main thing that changes with this, with the stuff that we bring in, we do lose a bit of instant speed. So we do lose instant speed on some of the removal, like Get Lost and everything like that. We've got Not on My Watch, exile target attacking creature that can get rid of creatures on the field at instant speed, which is nice. But then we've got other stuff like Exercise, which I still think is good, exiling artifacts or enchantments, but it is sorcery speed. We do have another instant one, but it's a situational with the creature being 4 or greater, but there's plenty of them with all the Overlords and the Sheoldreds, and this I feel like is still a very good card for this deck. And early on, we're really relying on your temporary lockdowns to sort of deal with, all those low mana aggro creatures. We lose the counterspell, but we bring in Phantom Interference as our counterspell. So, and we can make, it's a different version of one of these spree type cards, but this can make a blocker and it can obviously counter a target spell unless they pay 2. So different from our previous version where it was 3 mana where they can counter target spells, one of the spree options. This here is still a very good budget version for us to come in for common cards. Our other thing that we're bringing in is Requisition Raid because we can pay 2, destroy artifact, destroy enchantment, which I think with the amount of overlords, like I said, we do need that enchantment killing. And for 2 mana, I think it's just a really good spell, even though sorcery speed. Counter Magic more, No More Lies. We know how good that card is. And then the 4 Jace. To get you your win, you just need to mill opponents and, raid your opponent as you're milling them away. But this works very well as is. You do miss a little bit of the instant speed of the deck, so the first things I would bring in is like your Get Lost and everything like that, your instant speed, maybe to get rid of some of these, and if you feel like the other 1-drop was better than this. But this still is a very good budget version of a spree card, I do find. And then just upgrading the land. But yeah, blue-white control for 10 rares. A lot of people like playing control, but just put off by those, hideous amounts of rares. This is a version for you to start on and build up and, get some mill rage going on. So the next one isn't quite as many rares, but it's a very, very popular deck. And this is the main version at 11 rares. And what we're going to do, we're going to drop it to 4. So that will turn into a super, super budget deck. The deck runs a single of Tiny Bones, which was like an easy cut because of just being a single of for me. But it does run mainly commons and uncommons. 3 Liliana the Veils, still a very good card. 1 Rankle's Prank, and then the 4 Sheoldreds. You can probably already guess what the 4 is I'm keeping for this deck. Land base, a couple of Myrics, and then it does run some swamps as well. Just making sure I counted that up right. Yep, that is right. So we are going to drop 7 cards now to make this a functioning deck. Here we go. Well, lands very easily. Just put more swamps in. Myrics has to go straight away. Our 4 rares that we're going to be using is Sheoldred because it was the best card in the deck without a doubt. Brilliant. And what we're adding into this is just more removal. Now, if you saw we had Rankle's Prank in there, what we're doing in for our 4-drop here is let's play a game. So if there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, you can choose more than 1, but creatures your opponent's graveyard get -1/1. It has our discard effect. Each opponent discards 2, and it has a drain and gain effect too. So I feel like this, just as a one-off, is a pretty good card to come in. And the rest of the deck is just basically the same with a bit more removal. We've got cut downs, we've got, the talents, which is important to the deck. Another, pseudo wink on here. Go for the throat. So I've added in Nowhere to Run because that really helps against the enchantment decks. the Aura deck, sorry. That really does help. And then we've just got Thought Stalker Warlock in there. More ways just to attack opponent's hand. We're adding in a couple of Withering Torment to help deal with those Overlords again. And, you know, basically it's just keep the field free with this one. It's a simple downgrade, very simple this one, very much unlike the other ones. And, you know, it won't take you much to upgrade this to the full version. It runs about 51, 52, 53% discard. Some people have it a lot higher in the main version, but this version for me doesn't lose a lot. Lily is obviously a loss, but it doesn't really lose a lot. And you've got yourself here a 4 rare meta deck. So the last deck I've got for you is a 31 rare mono white control deck that I've been coming across a lot and finding very hard to beat. I'm missing a single Overlord here, as you can see, so I can probably just craft that to give the deck a spin, as in a full version. Really good card, this one. It makes those 2/1s and then comes in as a massive 6/6 later on once the impendings run off. The idea of the deck is playing control, but playing control with tokens and everything like that. The main stalwart of this deck for me is Caretaker's Talent, because it can trigger card draw, we can make copy tokens, and then it adds as an Anthem to buff up all those tokens, making them all +2/2. Lots of removal, lay down arms, we've got Get Lost in there as well. Also, 2 of Parting Gust that we can obviously still play as well. Sanguine Evangelist was one that was quite easy to swap, as you'll see in a minute. The Flying Bat is really good, and the Battle Cry is nice. But we have something to make a token and come as a creature as well for that. The 4 Bezer just had to be cut down, as you'll see, but a very good card, but legendary creature. And sometimes it literally just comes in as your 4/5, which is still very good for a 4-mana stat, but you can't put multiple on there because it is legendary. But let's get on to my budget version. So from 31 rares down to 10, and here we go. Cut down a couple of the main cards is basically what this one is all about, and then added in a few other pieces. So Overlord's just going to go down to 2 straight away. Virtual Loyalty cuts down to 1, so we still really want to try and get that enchantment down, the Loyalty, because it's really good. Some Thought, just as a couple, still really good because we've got lots of early removal as well. And the 4 Bezer I'm putting down to 1. Now, I have seen main versions with just 2. So, obviously 4 seems like an overload of them, to be honest. But that is what the main version was, and the most popular meta deck had 4 in there. So, what are we bringing in? We are swapping in for our creature that comes in and makes a token, Resolute Reinforcements. Same sort of thing. This has flash though, so we can flash it in. It makes a 1/1 social token, but then does make a creature and then makes a token as it itself as well. So I feel like that is just a great replacement for Sanguine, for a budget version of getting 2 creatures onto the field and 1 being a token. Then we're adding in Builder's Talent. So I've come across this deck in Standard quite a fair bit. And it's good. Making the 0/4 is a nice early blocker against, aggro decks. The level 2, whenever one or more non-creature, non-land permanent, you got to put a 1/1 target on it as well. Level 3, return target non-land, non-creature permanent card from your graveyard to the battlefield. Now, returning your Caretaker's Talent because they will be attacked. It just seems really decent to me. So I feel like with Builder's Talent in there, it's going to do a job. We've still got Carrot Cakes. More removal I'm adding in with Ossification as well, so that will really help us as we're dropping like Sunfalls and more stuff like that. And then Stroke of Midnight. We don't have Get Lost. I feel, there's a couple to weigh up for this. We do have, a single Make Your Move that I put in there, but I feel like this, and given that 1 token, bearing in mind we're going to be making a lot more tokens, I'd rather get rid of something really big and give them a 1/1, and this means we can destroy Planeswalkers, we can destroy creatures, enchantments. It's just a non-land permanent. So I feel like Stroke of Midnight will be perfect, replacement for the removal that we had in our previous deck. The land base, I've put in a couple of Fair Basilicas, and then we've got Demolition Field in there as well, and some plains, so 25 lands in total. This deck is fun as well, very awkward to play against, I found, and we're missing a few cards, but like I said, 31 was it, down to 10. But as you can see, the essence of the deck is still there. We just cut down a few of the numbers, bring in, still have the win cons of making loads of tokens, having Caretaker's Talent, Trigger and everything like that, and having your Overlords. And then it's just simple upgrades like it is for all of these decks till you can build them till they're full versions. So there we have 5 meta decks, budget versions of the full versions of really good competitive decks, and these decks will still be competitive for you and get you some wins on ranked without a doubt. Now, like I say, this is a building deck guide, so you know where to, which cards you've then got to put in. Both deck lists will be down below, so you can come back, look at which cards are missing, add in, here and there a few more. If you do need any advice on, if you've only got a couple you want to add in, you're not sure which ones to take out after that, if you're not doing the full swaps, just let me know down in the comments and I'll always be there to try and help you as soon as I can and get back to every one of you that leaves me a lovely comment as well. If you want to support me further and you love all the content and work that I do on here, please become, take a look at the Total MTG Patreon. Thank you to everyone that does that. But anyway, you lot take care, have fun playing these budget meta decks, and I'll see you on the next video.